Just as the saga of 1923 seemed to reach its conclusion, a fresh enigma emerges, unsettling the very foundations upon which the Dutton family stands. Elizabeth's narrative arc is far from complete. In truth, it feels as though we've merely glimpsed the inception of what promises to be the most pivotal and emotionally charged odyssey within the entire Dutton Chronicles. With whispers of a potential spin off circulating, unresolved questions lingering in the minds of the audience, and a conspicuous void in the family lineage demanding attention, it becomes evident that Elizabeth's path forward holds the master key. Reflecting on the clues gathered suggests the 1923 chapter of the Yellowstone universe is not closed, but is poised for a significant continuation. When 1923 drew to a close, it left behind a wake of sorrow, bewilderment, and dangling narrative threads. Among these, none resonated with more rawness and lack of resolution than Elizabeth's. Witnessing her departure, solitary and carrying a child after Jack's abrupt demise, inflicted a profound emotional blow that still echoes. Yet, consider the possibility that this moment wasn't intended as a finale, but rather as a threshold to an entirely new beginning. This interpretation aligns precisely with the subtle hints and narrative gaps presented. The architects of the story didn't simply allow Elizabeth to recede into obscurity by chance. Her quietude, her profound grief, and the uncertainty of her future were deliberately left open-ended. There exists a deeper story yearning to be told. Elizabeth embodies the forthcoming Dutton generation, and lacking her continuing story leaves a significant discontinuity in the expansive Yellowstone timeline. Knowing the intricate narrative weaving characteristic of Taylor Sheridan, it would be uncharacteristic for such a vital thread to remain unaddressed. The reality is that Elizabeth's destiny carries too much significance to be casually dismissed or forgotten. 2. Michelle Randolph, who portrays Elizabeth with such poignant realism, has herself alluded to a sense of incompleteness regarding her character's journey. In various interviews, she's spoken candidly about the absence of closure, even mentioning that she had to formulate her own speculative narrative for Elizabeth's future. This admission alone is telling within the Sheridan creative sphere. When actors express uncertainty about their characters' fates, it frequently signals that more extensive developments are unfolding behind the curtains. Furthermore, recalling past instances where Sheridan left audiences in suspense often preceded the launch of some of the most memorable spin-offs in the franchise. Delving further, it's crucial to recognize that Elizabeth's pregnancy transcends being merely a sorrowful narrative element. It represents the very pulse of the Dutton family's potential resurgence, with numerous cherished characters falling victim to violence, betrayal, and misfortune. Her unborn child emerges as a beacon of hope, a tangible link bridging the tumultuous world of 1923 with the future landscape familiar to Yellowstone enthusiasts. But the critical question remains: how does the narrative bridge the gap from the isolated grieving woman we last encountered to the formidable Dutton lineage that commands Montana in subsequent decades? This is the untold story demanding exploration. To assume Taylor Sheridan would leave such a compelling narrative possibility unexplored underestimates his meticulous storytelling approach. Adding intensity to this speculation are the persistent rumors suggesting Paramount is discreetly cultivating a new series centered entirely on Elizabeth. Not merely another season of 1923, but a more profound, intimate exploration following her departure from Montana, confronting life post-Jack, and summoning the fortitude to carve out a new existence, perhaps in a place like Boston or elsewhere. Her survival, the choices she makes, and her unwavering resolve become the very adhesive holding the larger narrative together. Imagine the challenges: raising a Dutton heir far from the protective embrace of the Yellowstone Ranch, encountering prejudice, peril, and constant uncertainty. Picture the adversaries who would undoubtedly seek to exploit the perceived vulnerability of the Dutton name, viewing her situation as an opening. Elizabeth's struggle transcends the personal. It assumes historical significance, potentially reshaping the contours of the Yellowstone universe we believed we comprehended. Another significant indicator lies in 1923's thematic exploration of motherhood, fertility, lineage, and family bonds. These motifs permeated the series deeply. When Elizabeth experienced a miscarriage earlier in the narrative, the impact was devastating, the loss profound. It had also served as foreshadowing for greater trials ahead. Now, presented with a second opportunity for motherhood, the stakes escalate dramatically. Her child symbolizes more than new life. It represents the future itself. To believe Sheridan would conclude such a pivotal storyline with a simple image of Elizabeth walking into ambiguity is to misunderstand his narrative style. Everything inherent in her character development, her grief, her resilience, her unspoken commitment to Jack, points towards a much larger, unresolved story demanding continuation. There's also the compelling reality that Elizabeth's character struck a deep chord with viewers. Audiences connected profoundly with her vulnerability, her unwavering loyalty, and her heart-wrenching fortitude. She wasn't depicted as an idealized heroine or a passive figure awaiting rescue. She felt authentic, flawed, wounded, yet persistently striving forward. Characters possessing such depth and relatability rarely just disappear within the Yellowstone narrative landscape. Typically, figures like Elizabeth are the ones who emerge from adversity, fundamentally reshaping the future. They achieve legendary status not through ambition, but through sheer necessity, having no alternative path. This is precisely the trajectory Elizabeth now seems poised upon, a path laden with uncertainty and sorrow, but equally rich with astonishing potential. Furthermore, it's impossible to overlook the significant gaps 1923 left in the Dutton family history, gaps that seemingly only Elizabeth's continuing story can bridge. We understand the Yellowstone Ranch endures. We know John Dutton III, as depicted by Kevin Costner, eventually assumes the mantle. However, the connective tissue between the era of 1923 and the modern timeline remains obscure. Who were the unacknowledged figures who sustained the ranch through its most challenging periods? Who waged the quiet, unrecorded battles that history often overlooks? Elizabeth's narrative holds the potential to illuminate these questions. Her trials, her triumphs, her sacrifices, these could form the missing chapters that finally lend coherence to the entire Dutton saga. Consider the timeline itself. With 1944 announced as the subsequent Yellowstone prequel, a noticeable void exists between 1923 and 1944, demanding a narrative bridge. Elizabeth's journey could perfectly serve this function, guiding viewers through the tumultuous roaring 20s, the hardships of the Great Depression, and into the nascent stages of World War II. Imagine witnessing Elizabeth not merely enduring, but potentially flourishing against formidable odds, safeguarding the Dutton name through some of America's most turbulent historical decades. The dramatic possibilities are immense. Given the careful construction of her character in 1923, it feels strongly suggestive that this continuation was part of the long-term narrative design. Sheridan is too precise a storyteller to neglect such a compelling narrative avenue. All evidence converges on a singular conclusion. Elizabeth's future narrative isn't just a remote possibility. It feels inevitable. Her suffering, her fortitude, her unborn child, these elements constitute the foundation upon which the next major Yellowstone story arc will likely be constructed. Her struggle won't revolve around seeking glory or retribution. It will be fundamentally about survival, about defending her home against relentless forces determined to seize it. She will face repeated tests, trials that push her very humanity to its limits. It is often in these moments of acute desperation, when hope seems most distant, that true heroism is forged, and this seems the likely arc for Elizabeth. Time itself will function as both her greatest adversary and her most valuable ally. As decades unfold, the world surrounding her will inevitably transform. New technologies will emerge, fresh conflicts will arise, and shifting alliances will reshape the socio-political landscape. Elizabeth will need to demonstrate remarkable adaptability, learning to navigate a society that may not always be receptive to women assuming positions of leadership or engaging in conflict. As her fundamental resolve is unlikely to falter. Her conflicts won't always be characterized by overt, dramatic confrontations. Many will likely unfold as silent struggles, battles waged in legal arenas, through complex business negotiations, and amidst whispered threats exchanged in shadowed corners. It is within these less visible conflicts that Elizabeth's true strength may shine most brightly. Unlike many potential adversaries motivated by power or financial gain, Elizabeth's fight stems from love, familial duty, and the preservation of sacred memory. The future holds not only hardship, but also the profound possibility of hope. Elizabeth's child, the living symbol of the dreams she shared with Jack, could one day inherit the Yellowstone Ranch. This child would carry forward not just the Dutton name, but also the legacy of resilience painstakingly forged by Elizabeth. Raising a child within such a fractured and perilous environment would demand immense courage, perhaps more than any physical battlefield. Yet, Elizabeth would undoubtedly rise to this challenge. She would impart to her child the core values Jack embodied: honor, loyalty, and strength. Through this child, the Dutton dream would not merely endure, it could potentially flourish. Elizabeth would thus become not only a mother, but a figure of legend, the quiet architect of a future constructed from sacrifice and hope. There's an undeniable poetic resonance in this potential narrative. The way Elizabeth's personal tragedy could metamorphose into triumph, how her broken heart might become the very catalyst that preserves the Dutton lineage. Every tear shed, every sleepless night endured, every battle fought, all these experiences would contribute significantly. They would culminate in a legacy so potent that subsequent generations might speak her name with deep reverence. Even if the wider world forgets the specific conflicts she navigated or the victories she secured, the Yellowstone itself, the land, would retain the memory. It would subtly recount her story to those attuned enough to perceive it. And Elizabeth, once perhaps envisioning a simpler life with the man she loved, would ascend to something far greater than she ever anticipated. A foundational pillar of the Dutton dynasty. Ultimately, Elizabeth's story transcends mere survival. It is a narrative of profound transformation. It explores how a single existence, profoundly shaped by tragedy yet persistently fueled by love, can alter the trajectory of history. Taylor Sheridan has invested too much depth and power into her character to simply allow her to fade from the narrative tapestry. 9. All indicators strongly suggest a more significant, extended role for her, a story arc reaching far beyond the confines of what has been depicted thus far. When this narrative eventually unfolds, it promises to engage audiences emotionally, perhaps breaking hearts only to mend them anew, mirroring the resilience Elizabeth herself embodies. Her journey remains unfinished. It is arguably just beginning. And when the next chapter arrives, it will likely stand as a powerful testament to the indomitable spirit that characterizes not only the Duttons, but all individuals who dare to dream, to fight, and to believe against daunting odds. Looking forward, one thing seems certain. Elizabeth's challenges will extend beyond external threats fought on open ranges or intense negotiations. The most significant battles may well be waged internally, within the confines of her own heart, during quiet, solitary moments when no one else is witness. Doubt is likely to surface, whispering insidious suggestions that the burden is too immense to bear alone, that the obstacles arrayed against her are insurmountable. Grief remains a heavy mantle, and profound loneliness can inflict deeper wounds than any physical injury. However, Elizabeth's true strength probably lies not in feigning invulnerability, but in her capacity to persist despite the encompassing pain. Every step taken, every decision rendered, will represent an act of defiance against the sorrow threatening to overwhelm her. This internal struggle, unseen by the outside world yet intensely real within her, will likely define her character more profoundly than any external conflict. The Dutton lineage has always been characterized by remarkable resilience, a stubborn refusal to capitulate adversity. Elizabeth will likely inherit this legacy and mold her own distinct version of it. Hers might manifest as a quieter form of strength, an endurance that doesn't seek accolades but naturally commands respect. She will likely learn that often, the most significant victories are not achieved through grand public gestures, but through the simple, repeated choice to continue onward when every fiber of one's being urges surrender. Through this unwavering perseverance, Elizabeth could become an inspiration to those in her orbit. Family members, loyal ranch hands, perhaps even hardened adversaries who recognize in her a reflection of the core values the Yellowstone Ranch represents: loyalty, sacrifice, and an unbreakable spirit. 10. Yet the path ahead will inevitably be strewn with betrayals. Individuals she once placed her trust in may turn against her, motivated by avarice, envy, or fear. Alliances may shift, transforming allies into foes, and solemn promises may be broken. Elizabeth will be compelled to cultivate a certain necessary hardness, accepting the painful reality that trust is not universally deserved. This is a harsh yet essential lesson. The Dutton legacy cannot be safeguarded through naive innocence alone. It demands wisdom, caution, and the resolve to act decisively when confronted with betrayal. Elizabeth's journey will likely transform her from a hopeful young woman into a more seasoned, strategic individual, someone who understands that cherished values like love and loyalty sometimes require defense through assertive, even aggressive means. She will learn to strategize for the long term, discerning hidden motives beneath amiable facades and handshakes. With each betrayal, each heartbreak, she is likely to emerge not weakened, but stronger, more discerning. The dangers will not solely emanate from external human forces. The Yellowstone Ranch itself presents a constant challenge, a demanding entity requiring perpetual vigilance. Managing the vast expanse of land, protecting livestock, contending with natural adversities like droughts and predators, and navigating complex government regulations, each of these represents a significant battle in itself, capable of overwhelming even the most robust spirit. Elizabeth will need to rapidly master the complexities of leadership, making critical, often life or death decisions that impact not only her own fate, but the survival of everyone reliant on the ranch. There will undoubtedly be moments where doubt assails her, where the sheer magnitude of her responsibilities threatens to crush her spirit. In such times, she will likely draw strength from her memories of Jack, from the shared dreams they nurtured, and from the silent vows she made to herself during her darkest hours. These memories will serve as fuel, compelling her to stand resolute even when the very ground beneath her seems unstable. 11. As if these burdens were not substantial enough, Elizabeth will likely confront new adversaries who are more intelligent, better resourced, and more ruthless than those previously encountered. Industrialists might view the Yellowstone not as sacred ancestral land, but merely as a resource ripe for exploitation. Politicians might be swayed by incentives, willing to compromise heritage for political gain. Outlaws, indifferent to history or honor, might pose direct physical threats. These forces will likely approach with enticing offers, veiled threats, and manipulative deals, all designed to divest the Duttons of their birthright. Elizabeth will need to navigate this perilous landscape with exceptional cunning and bravery, fully aware that a single misstep could result in catastrophic loss. She will need to forge alliances judiciously, entering into bargains only when strategically essential, and always maintaining unwavering focus on her ultimate objectives: safeguarding the land, preserving the legacy, and securing the future for which her family has fought and sacrificed so profoundly. Throughout all these trials, the emotional core of Elizabeth's journey, her connection to Jack, will likely remain a constant undercurrent. The memory of Jack Dutton will probably continue to influence her decisions, serving as a perpetual reminder of the love lost and the dream she steadfastly refuses to abandon. Their narrative, though tragically interrupted, will continue to shape Elizabeth's path forward. Every success she achieves, every battle she endures will, in a sense, serve as a tribute to him. In quiet, perhaps sacred moments, Elizabeth might find solace in the belief that Jack's spirit remains with her, offering guidance through the inevitable storms she must face. This conviction could provide strength during moments of vulnerability and hope when darkness threatens to engulf her. However, Elizabeth's story extends beyond merely enduring the past. It is fundamentally about constructing a future. The prospect of a new generation, her child, the potential next inheritor of the Dutton legacy, will grant her a purpose extending beyond simple survival. She will fight not just for her own present, but for a future she might not personally witness. This kind of selfless sacrifice, this forward-looking love, forms the bedrock upon which enduring legacies are truly established. Elizabeth might find herself planting seeds for harvests she won't reap, building foundations for structures she won't inhabit, and establishing traditions she won't personally see carried on. Yet none of that potential personal absence might diminish her resolve, driven by the profound conviction that the Dutton story must persist, even if her own individual chapter concludes quietly. There is also the tangible possibility of a new narrative chapter unfolding beyond the events depicted in 1923. Whispers and speculation about a spin-off centered on Elizabeth's ongoing life have already generated considerable anticipation among the fan base. And understandably so. Her character possesses too much depth, complexity, and narrative potential to be simply left behind. A future series could delve into the conflicts only hinted at thus far, the intense struggles yet to be fully tested, the relationships poised for development or dissolution, the formidable enemies still waiting in the wings. Elizabeth's story serves as the vital bridge connecting the old world with the new, linking the raw brutality of the frontier era with the dawn of modern America. Her personal struggles, her hard-won victories, her necessary sacrifices, all these elements lay the essential groundwork for the Yellowstone landscape that eventually emerges. She is not destined to be a mere footnote in the Dutton saga. She is positioned to be the author of its next significant volume. Should such a future series materialize, audiences could anticipate a narrative rich with emotional depth, filled with heartbreak, triumph, betrayal, and eventual redemption. It would capture not only the stark, often brutal beauty of the American West, but also the indomitable spirit of individuals who refuse to be broken by circumstance. Elizabeth's continuing journey would offer an unvarnished, unfiltered perspective on the true cost of survival and the enduring power of legacy. Throughout this potential narrative, viewers would witness the evolution of a woman rising from the ashes of her shattered dreams to become one of the most formidable figures in the Dutton lineage, whose spirit becomes intrinsically linked to the very heartbeat of Yellowstone. As time progresses, the challenges confronting Elizabeth are likely to intensify, growing darker and more intricate. Mere survival will cease to be sufficient. She must continually adapt, evolve, and embrace a degree of resilience and perhaps ruthlessness she might never have imagined possessing. The world continues its relentless transformation, railroads encroaching on sacred grounds, new legislation challenging traditional ways of life, powerful interest attempting to acquire or forcibly take the Yellowstone. Elizabeth must transcend the role of survivor to become a master strategist, a vigilant protector, a warrior veiled in the quiet authority characteristic of the Dutton name. 13. Each conflict will inevitably leave its imprint upon her, every betrayal adding another scar she carries with quiet fortitude. Yet, with each scar, she is likely to grow sharper, wiser, and more resolute in her determination to outlast those seeking to dismantle her world. Carrying such immense burdens will not be without profound personal cost. Elizabeth will undoubtedly experience periods of soul-crushing loneliness, moments where the sheer weight of responsibility feels almost unbearable. There might be nights spent walking the vast, silent land, gazing at the stars, questioning whether Jack would approve of the person she has become. Regret may occasionally surface, whispering tempting thoughts of alternative paths, simpler lives perhaps possible had different choices been made. But deep within, Elizabeth will likely recognize that there was never truly another viable path forward. The Yellowstone represents more than just a ranch. It is a sacred obligation, a living testament to those who came before, and a solemn promise to future generations. To abandon it would constitute a betrayal of everyone she holds dear, including her own fundamental identity. Consequently, she will likely set her jaw, square her shoulders, and continue marching forward, weathering every storm that comes her way. Amidst these struggles, new relationships will likely emerge, fragile alliances forged from mutual necessity, perhaps unexpected companionships born from shared adversity. Some of these connections might prove genuine, offering Elizabeth rare moments of solace, warmth, and trust. Others, however, could be treacherous, like wolves disguised in sheep's clothing, patiently awaiting an opportune moment to strike. Elizabeth will need to hone her instincts to an exceptional degree, learning to discern sincerity from deception almost instantaneously. Trust will likely become an exceedingly rare commodity. extended sparingly and only to those who repeatedly demonstrate unwavering loyalty through action, often when unobserved. This hard won wisdom will become yet another formidable tool in her arsenal, further solidifying her role as a guardian of the Dutton legacy. Meanwhile, the threats against her are likely to escalate and evolve. Rivals may grow bolder, abandoning subtle tactics or political maneuvering in favor of direct confrontation. They might arrive with force, employing hired guns prepared to shed blood to seize the coveted land. 14. Elizabeth could find herself thrust into violent conflicts that test not only her physical courage, but the very core of her morality. She may be forced into making agonizing choices that leave lasting scars, situations where no truly good option exists, only the necessity of choosing the lesser of two evils. There might be moments of introspection where she questions if the fight has hardened her excessively, if she has lost touch with the hopeful young woman she once was. Yet, every difficult decision will likely be perceived as a necessary sacrifice, undertaken not from a place of cruelty, but from a profound love for the land and the future she is fiercely striving to protect. While the memory of Jack remains a central guiding influence, new individuals will inevitably shape her ongoing journey. Perhaps a steadfast ranch hand evolves into a deeply loyal confidant, or a wise mentor figure imparts crucial knowledge about survival in a rapidly changing world. These relationships could offer Elizabeth vital glimpses of hope, serving as reminders that she doesn't have to shoulder the immense weight of destiny entirely alone. Nevertheless, even as she cultivates these essential bonds, she will likely understand that effective leadership often necessitates a degree of isolation. To safeguard those she cares for, Elizabeth might sometimes need to stand apart, making difficult choices that others cannot fully comprehend or readily accept. It is often a solitary path, but it is the path frequently trod by true leaders, the path intrinsic to the Dutton experience. Through a mixture of victories and setbacks, triumphs and tragedies, Elizabeth's legend is likely to solidify and expand. Tales of her courage, resilience, and determination will probably circulate throughout Montana and beyond, inspiring a mixture of awe and perhaps fear. To some, she might become a potent symbol of everything valuable and worth preserving in the untamed West, a woman who resolutely refused to surrender, irrespective of the cost. To others, particularly those with conflicting ambitions, she will represent a formidable obstacle to be circumvented or removed, a stubborn embodiment of a fading era. But Elizabeth herself will likely remain unconcerned with external labels or perception. Her focus will remain steadfastly on the promises she has made, the people she holds dear, and the future she is irrevocably committed to creating. 15. As speculation continues regarding a potential narrative continuation beyond 1923, the possibilities feel vast and compelling. A spin-off focusing on Elizabeth could explore her most intense challenges yet, the inherent conflicts between preserving tradition and embracing modernization, the difficult balance between personal aspirations and public responsibility, the timeless struggle between noble intentions and sometimes brutal necessities. Such a series would vividly illustrate to audiences the true price of maintaining a legacy, the heavy cost associated with being a Dutton in a world rapidly losing sight of the values they cherish. It would delve into the complex internal struggles of a woman compelled to reconcile strength with compassion, pride with wisdom, and justice with the often harsh realities of survival. Elizabeth's ongoing journey would not be portrayed as a simple fairy tale. It would be an epic saga woven from blood, sweat, and tears. It would narrate a story of enduring love juxtaposed with devastating loss, chronicling the relentless pursuit of a future she may never fully witness herself. Ultimately, it would resonate deeply with anyone who has ever fought passionately to protect something precious against seemingly overwhelming odds. Her battles would likely escalate in scale, her adversaries become more perilous, and her victories be even harder won. Yet through it all, Elizabeth's fundamental spirit would likely remain unyielding, her inner fire inextinguishable. In a world increasingly prone to forgetting the sacrifices of previous generations, Elizabeth Dutton would stand as a powerful, defiant reminder that some principles, some legacies are worth fighting for, even at the potential cost of everything. When history eventually reflects upon her life, It may not primarily remember her for the pain she endured or the specific enemies she overcame. Instead, it will likely remember her for her unwavering resilience, her profound connection to the land, and her pivotal role in ensuring the continuation of the Dutton legacy against all odds.